operator who will take down some quick information and get you in the queue. And once the operator notes your information, you'll be returned to the call and can listen to the conversation until you are called upon. Since our panel would like to hear from as many people as possible, we'll limit all callers to just one question, and when it's your turn, I'll call your name and ask you to repeat it for our live audience. So first, let's hear from Commerce City Police Chief Cliff Nichols. Chief, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you to everyone who's joining us tonight. Again, as Roger mentioned, my name is Cliff Nichols. I am the Chief of Police with the Commerce City Police Department. And I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you for joining us this evening. At least for the hour that we're together, we're going to spend some time talking about public safety in Commerce City and the region, talk about some recent criminal incidents, and highlight some efforts the police department is doing to keep our community safe. In addition to that, the most important part of the hour will be spent taking questions from residents. We truly want to hear your concerns about what we are doing, how we're doing, and provide an opportunity for Commerce City residents to be heard. This is your meeting. I am being joined by some members of my team this evening, and in just a moment, I will have them do some brief introductions so your questions and concerns can be answered by the experts themselves. As a reminder, you can participate by pressing *3 on your telephone keypad. You will be transferred to an operator who will get you in the queue. If you are watching online, you will need to join by telephone first. That number is 833-946-1531. Once you join the call, just press *3. I want to first take the time to remind you that this is a live event. There are no pre-planned questions, no scripts, no canned answers, no producers, or highly paid stand-in actors. It is just the community and the police department having a conversation. We hope that you find this evening informative, enlightening, and engaging. And again, thank you for joining us this evening. And let's get started with some brief introductions.
All right, thank you, Chief. Again, we're going to say it a few times just so that you get the number if you're online. As a reminder, if you'd like to ask our panel a question, press *3 now. We've got some people queuing up already. That's terrific. And if you're online, again, that number, 833-946-1531. Call that number to join the line online or on the telephone, and then press *3. Now I'd like to call on Commander Harold Chapman for some opening remarks. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you again for joining us. My name, as they mentioned, is Harold Chapman. I'm the commander of the Professional Standards Unit. I've been a police officer for 39 years, and I've been here with Commerce City for 6.
All right. Thank you. Next up is Commander Sadar. Go ahead. Gary Sadar, go ahead.
Hi, again, my name is Greg Sadar. I'm the commander over the Investigations Division, and I've been a police officer for just over 30 years, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions this evening.
Commander, I apologize. I think I called you Gary instead of...
oh, no worries.
So let's next go to Commander Rob McCoy. Commander, do you have some opening remarks, or at least introduce yourself? Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Rob McCoy. I'm the commander in patrol operations. I've been with Commerce City for almost 30 years, and I look forward to speaking with you tonight.
All right. Thank you, Commander. Again, as a reminder, *3 is all it takes to get in line to ask a question. You'll be transferred to an operator who will get you in the queue. And if you're watching online, you need to call in first, 833-946-1531, and then press *3. So, Chief, I'm going to hand it back to you so you can provide some information on our topics tonight, and then we'll go take some questions. Go ahead.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to talk about a lot of things in Commerce City, recent trends, some incidents that we've had, and some of the things that the police department is doing to sort of make sure that we can keep our residents safe. In addition to that, we're probably going to talk about some regional issues that are affecting Commerce City, as well as some national issues. And then I want to spend a little bit of time and talk about the impact that the Senate bill has had on policing in Commerce City. And so on that note, Roger, I think we are ready to take our first couple of questions.
All right, terrific. Let's start with Mike. Go ahead, you're live with our audience.
Yes, I was pretty much wondering what the police department is going to do, depending on the election, as to who wins it. And there are violence or problems in the street or in the suburban area of Commerce City. What are their plans to keep everybody safe?
Well, Mike, thank you. That's a great question. I know you asked about the sheriff of Adams County, and I'm not sure what he's going to do. This is the Commerce City Police Department. But what I can tell you is we work pretty well with our regional partners in addressing these issues that may affect one or another jurisdiction. We work through a process that's called mutual aid. And what that means is if a neighboring city, Brighton, Denver, Adams County, Thornton, if they were to be dealing with an incident that required more manpower than they could staff, they would place a call to the different departments in the area, and we would send what staff we could afford to send. I think the important thing to remember during all of this is that at no time is Commerce City safety compromised. We send the bodies that we have to send, and we always make sure that we have enough to maintain public safety here in Commerce City. That is our number one priority. So thank you for the call, Mike.
All right. Again, star 3 if you'd like to get in line. Ken is next. Go ahead.
Hi, gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank you guys for your service. I want to thank Commerce City Police Department for being actively involved in the community with everything that's going on in the country right now. I know you guys are facing some difficult obstacles, so I wanted to thank you for everything you do before I ask my question. Question is, I live in Reunion. Been there about 4 years, and seems the number of statistics of incidents happening there has gone up considerably. So I want to know if maybe the substation is going to be reopened, or if you guys have some kind of plan, maybe have a higher profile in Reunion instead of just having to wait till someone calls you, that you're going to be doing some drive-throughs on certain nights of the week or anything like that.
Hi, Ken. This is Rob McCoy. Just to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in the north. The north is starting to experience a lot more residents moving in. Our officers are out on foot. Our officers are patrolling the areas the best we can. We try to prioritize areas based on criminal activity as it comes. But we have to answer calls for service as well as they come. So to answer your question, yes, we are in the neighborhoods. We have bike patrol that we're going to try to start getting back into the field a little bit more and things of that nature. I know our officers, especially on night shifts, are spending time walking around the neighborhoods and trying to just see what's going on. Commerce City is not unique in regards to some of the activities. It happens throughout the entire metro area related to motor vehicle thefts or breaking into vehicles and things of that nature. So we're not unique. With regards to the substation, it is currently operational. However, it's not manned 24 hours a day. You can call dispatch, either our non-emergent line or our emergent line, and an officer will get with you and you can meet with them at the substation. So if you'd like, we can get you that number. I'll have to, I'll get back with you as far as that number. I think I'll get back with you on the number. I don't want to give a bad number. So hopefully that answers your question, sir.
All right, great question so far. Cindy, go ahead with yours.
Well, first off, hi. First off, I just wanted to thank you guys for your service. I know you guys will probably get beaten up pretty bad here tonight, but you guys do the best you can with what you've got. The question I have is, what's being done to increase the safety of people in the parks?
You know, Cindy, that's a great question. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see the council meeting that took place, the special meeting that was called on Tuesday. But our city council just took up an emergency ordinance order that the police department worked with our legal team to sort of come up with a plan on how we can address parks. So that new ordinance that just got passed, and we're going to be pushing some information out in the city manager update about how it's going to work from an operational standpoint. But in a nutshell, the hours of the park have been extended. Before they had some altered hours, Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday had different hours, along with holidays. This new ordinance set the new park hours at 11 o'clock. So we are consistent across the board. One of the things that we've started doing, as you may have noticed, we have two-man officers, two officers, one north and one south, that when the park's closed, they'll be driving by at closure time and advising people that the park is closed, probably with a PA. And we're going to do that at all of the parks. Once that is done, they will sweep back through the first park. They will advise again and make sure that people leave the park. Those that are still there, this new ordinance gives us the ability to actually write tickets to vehicles that are parked in the park after hours and potentially tow. It also prevents parking along adjacent streets for parks that don't have parking lots. So we're pretty hopeful that this will do something to alleviate the after-hour activity in the park. As far as the activities in the park during the operational hours, that is always a challenge for us. Again, we usually don't actively patrol the parks other than driving through on different calls for service. And as times permit, we will typically drive through the parks and check on the folks that are out there at the park and having a good time. But generally speaking, it's not a part of our routine patrolled areas where we have somebody there at every hour. We are taking a look in this next budget cycle at a park marshal, city ranger sort of project. We've already sort of typed up the job description that has already been funded by council, and we hope to bring that online sometime in 2021. So in addition to them working the parks, they'll also do the open space, the trails, as well as the courts. So we're hopeful that that will also be able to alleviate some of the activity that is taking place in the parks. Thank you for your questions.
All right, let's go to Carlos next. Go right ahead.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you guys for your service. And with that being said, my concern is we live in the Pioneer Park, Monaco Park area, and we constantly hear cars drag racing or trucks, vehicles drag racing up and down Monaco, 60th Avenue, 56th Avenue. What are you guys, I guess, what is your approach to put this to a stop? Is my question, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so can we put it to a stop? No, but we are making efforts in far as traffic enforcement goes. I can tell you that 60th Avenue and Monaco Street is one of our hot spots where we put a patrol out. There's just a lot of hot spots throughout the whole city. So we have to spread our officers to try to address issues throughout the whole city. And Monaco and 60th, both of those streets are some of our busiest in the core southern part of the city. But we do send out extra patrols and extra enforcement to those areas. With regards to drag racing, that's an issue that usually occurs at night. And we do have, we're teaming with other agencies in the Denver metro area to address drag racing. And I think that partnership will help us be successful in trying to address those issues. Unfortunately, we can't predict where those are going to occur. They can occur here in Aurora or Brighton. And that's why we're teaming up with other agencies. So hopefully we can address drag racing. But like I said, we have lots of areas in the city. You know, we talk about problems in the community, and traffic and speeding and parking are the things that come up most. So I understand your concern and your frustration. I'm frustrated when that happens in my neighborhood as well. So all I can say is we do our very best to address it, and we move around the city addressing issues. So hopefully it answers your question, sir.
Okay, let's go to Lon next. Go ahead.
Hi, again, thank you all for your service and for this opportunity. We appreciate it. We live in North Commerce City in the Turnberry neighborhood, and similar complaint, just a lot of speeding, especially through the main drag of Revere Street from 104th through to the Turnberry School. And with school being back in, a lot more kids are walking through the crosswalk and riding bikes. And we're seeing people just flying through there, I mean, probably 60, 70 miles an hour. Is there going to be speed bumps put in or speed traps or something to address the safety concern of these people speeding?
Thank you for the question. As previously mentioned, Commerce City is a high traffic city. We are surrounded by freeways on all four sides, and those speeds tend to work towards the streets and neighborhoods. So I want to address a couple of things. First thing first, the police department has absolutely nothing to do with speed bumps or speed traps. That is a public work function that requires a bunch of studies, and there are problems with installing speed bumps because your streets can't get cleaned from snow, and it creates a whole bunch of other issues. And I'm not the expert on it. What I am the expert on is the police department does not deal with speed bumps and speed traps. What I can tell you with regards to the speeding, we do have our officers out in the neighborhoods. As previously mentioned, we are resource challenged. Not every neighborhood can have their own police officer, particularly when all of the schools get out at the same time. And so we have to be very thoughtful in how we manage those resources. One of the things that we do is we are compliant with a program called DDAGS. And what that means is we use data-driven access in order to make determinations on how bad the problem is. So when we do receive traffic complaints, one of the first things we do is we take a look at our historical data, and we want to make sure that there is, in fact, a problem. One of the things we do is if we determine that there is a problem, the next thing we do is we go out and put out some speed trailers and or some covert devices that track speeds. That typically takes about a week. Once we get that data back, that data takes a look at an entire week of activity in and around the area that we're studying, and we get a pretty good idea of what the speed problem is. We work on what's called the 80th percentile, and what that means is that if the 80th percentile of vehicles is speeding, that means there is a need for enforcement. If it is below 80%, we typically don't do anything but spot check it with the area assigned officers. That then becomes their responsibility. And so we do have a plan to address it. It may not be one that everybody likes, but we want to make sure that we're using our resources wisely. And that's the best way we can do that. I can tell you we are limited on, we can't put up radars and trailers. We don't have a room full of them that we put up. So we have to be very judicious, and we take those as they come in. So we do pay attention. We do get out there and assess it. We do take these concerns serious. But again, we want to make sure that we're putting our resources in the right place because our resources are finite. And we want to make sure that we're putting our cops in the right places where they will have the best impact. So thank you for your question.
All right, thank you. Great question so far. Again, if you would like to ask a question, press *3 on your telephone keypad. You'll be transferred to an operator who will take down some information and get you in the queue. And if you're watching online, you'll need to join by telephone first. Again, that number, 833-946-1531. And then once you join the call, press *3. Chief, this is related to some of the things you've talked about already, but why don't you talk a little bit about policing challenges in a growing community?
Yeah, thanks, Roger. Commerce City is, I believe it is the second, Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, second or third fastest growing city in Colorado. And what that means is resources get tapped pretty quickly, and the police department is not immune to that growth. If you take a look at particularly some of our northern range neighborhoods, they are growing at a rapid pace. I believe we are probably on pace somewhere to add, and don't quote me on this, I think we're going to add somewhere between 2,000 to 2,500 houses in Commerce City next year. If you take the national average of 3.1 people per home, that's almost 6,000 people. With 6,000 people come challenges that require additional policing services, additional traffic enforcement services, additional street sweeping services, additional, you name it, that many residents impact the level of service that we're looking at in Commerce City. I can tell you this is something that at the staff level here in the city, all of the department directors are looking towards the future to make a determination as to if we can't fund the growth, then what services are we going to have to take a look at and scale back? And the police department, again, is not immune to that. And so, again, this is about using our resources to our best ability. I can tell you hiring police officers is expensive. That is not a cheap venture. By the time you recruit, train, put them in field training, equip them with all the stuff that they have, we are probably a good $100,000 into one employee. And so hiring additional officers is only one part of the problem. So we're being challenged to be creative in how we use our resources. But at the end of the day, my mandate is to keep Commerce City safe. And we're going to do everything we can to do that. So again, taking a look at our resources, using them wisely, and then making the determination that there are some things that a city of this size, the police department just won't be able to respond to. And again, we want to be very thoughtful about that because we know that there'll be a negative impact. But we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence, communicate that to the community so that they understand the dilemma that we're in, and then we go from there. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. Let's get back to your questions. Jack, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hello, officers. I really appreciate your joining us and getting in front of us. It's really important that you guys do that. So again, I appreciate it very much. My question is focused more on what you guys briefly touched on already, which is the break-ins into the personal property up in the north. I guess I have two questions. One is, what is the department's strategy to crack down on this? Obviously, apart from the personal responsibility of all the residents who live in the area of adjusting to this and making sure that the cars are locked and that the properties are properly lit up. And the second question is, are there any leads, or can you guys share any details with us as to whether you were able to get some leads on this whole situation?
Jack, Greg Sadar here. Thank you for your question. We have seen an uptick in people breaking into cars and auto theft throughout the city and throughout the metro area. Throughout the entire metro area since March, auto theft itself is up about 125%. With regard to just car break-ins, here in the city, we've had about 237 that have occurred this year so far. The biggest trend we're seeing with car break-ins are people walking up and checking locked cars. When they find cars that are unlocked, they tend to break into those cars and raffle through those cars. Most of the locked cars cause people to move on. One of the interesting things about that is so many people have invested in Ring doorbell or other types of video systems out in front of their house. So we're becoming more and more aware of these issues where 15, 20 years ago, when nobody had video outside their houses, we were not aware of those issues. When we do run into a spree of crimes like this, we have our officers canvass the neighborhood and ask neighbors for video, and we've been publishing that video pretty regularly. If you look at our Facebook and Twitter sites, you'll see that we've been posting images of people that have been breaking into cars. And we also check out several different online sites where we find property that's fenced off and stolen from vehicles. The biggest thing you can do, candidly, is keep your cars locked. Even if the person is determined to break into a car, if your car is locked and secured and they don't see visible things laying out, maybe they'll move on to an easier target or an easier neighborhood. We have had some successes in dealing with people who've broken into cars, and we pursue the best prosecutions we can in those cases. But understand, all we can do is gather evidence and make arrests, and then we pass that case on to the district attorney's office for for prosecution. Does that answer your question, sir?
All right, thank you. Janet, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi, I had a couple of questions. First, there's an intersection on 70th in Colorado, and there's a four-way stop. Cars are constantly speeding through there, not stopping on at the stop sign. Occasionally, you can tell that it's people who maybe aren't from the neighborhood, and they try to slow down once they get there, but they keep going. And it's become really unsafe to cross and try to get to the trail. And I'm wondering what, if anything, can be done about that. I know somebody else had mentioned something about speed bumps, and the police department said that they, that's out of their range. I'm just wondering if that's something that I would need to bring up to city council. Is it a light that needs to be put there? I'm just wondering, for safety reasons, what can we do?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, let me get on my screen here. This is Rob McCoy. Sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulties there. That intersection is new with the four-way stop for the RTD light rail trailhead there at 70th in Colorado. I've put our traffic units out there repeatedly to try to address those issues, and we will continue to do so. Part of the problem with speed bumps and such is snow routes and the heavy truck traffic for the refinery and such. So it is a concern. Traffic has increased in that area a great deal, and quite frankly, it's because of the volume of traffic in the Denver metro area. When 270 is backed up and I-76 is backed up, a lot of people try to use Colorado Boulevard to avoid all that traffic congestion. And that's something we can't control really, as far as if they're going to use that. But we do try to get officers up in there for speed enforcement during the off hours. Now, when it's the volume is so thick, traffic usually doesn't get to the speeds typically to do any sort of enforcement. And I appreciate the fact that you're concerned about crossing that roadway. That is a difficult roadway, and that's why they put the four-way stop. We will be working with traffic engineering to evaluate that, to determine if it's appropriate to keep it as a four-way stop, or if we can potentially put a light to address those issues. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right. For those of you who may be joining the call late, good evening. I'm Roger, and I'm your moderator tonight as we talk with Commerce City Police Chief Clint Nichols about public safety in Commerce City and the region, recent criminal activities, and highlight some efforts the police department is doing to keep our community safe. If you'd like to ask a question, press *3 on your telephone keypad to get in the queue. And again, if you're online or joined us online and want to ask a question, you'll need to call in at 833-946-1531 to join online, and then you'll press *3. So let's get back to some questions. And Crystal, you're next. Go ahead.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, I also live off of 56 in Monaco, so I have noticed that around the 56 and Holly 7-Eleven, there is a lot of transient people and loitering and homeless people. I've even had to pick up a bike out of the middle of the street from a homeless person in the middle of the roadway. So again, this relates to traffic to me because it's a hazard to me going home. But I'm curious as to why people aren't being, ticketed for loitering in that area.
Thank you. That's a really good question. And look, we have a screen with all the questions coming up, so I can see how many actually deal with what we're doing about the transient population. And so this is a great time to sort of talk to the community about some of the struggles that we're having as it relates to the transient community. First off, I want to say that, yes, not just Commerce City, but Colorado in general has a very high transient population. Having said that, law enforcement, the only way we can actually interact with the transient population is when they are doing something illegal. And so the actual loitering and gathering in parks when they are not doing anything illegal, parks are there for the enjoyment and the benefit of the entire community, not just Commerce City residents. And so they are just as entitled to use the parks as we are. Even when they show up with all of their stuff and they hang out on the slide, that is not criminal. There's not anything that we can do about it. The only time we can contact them outside of criminal activity is when we believe that they may be in distress. And that needs to be something that needs to be very visible, that a police officer can articulate that I contacted this person because they were exhibiting these signs. And even then, we can only talk to them until we can determine that they are no longer a threat to themselves or others. And then we at some point have to either offer services and leave. We are experiencing a lot of transient movement, particularly Denver has taken a pretty aggressive stance, but they also had a much larger problem with, actively camping out in some of their parks and areas, which we don't have that problem yet. And I know I've sort of addressed your question, but there's a few more that I want to make sure that we get taken care of, because we were asked specifically about the homeless in the parks. And again, transients can use the park just as much as anybody else. There is not anything that the police department can do about that. They are entitled to the same respect. And again, they have the right to use the park. There isn't anything that we can do about that. What we are doing, we're working with Adams County and our regional partners to address homelessness and the transient problem on a regional level. What I can also tell you is, from my prior organization that I came from, we also dealt with the same issues, and no one has solved this problem yet. It is a problem that is going to require a lot of resources. It is going to require a lot of time, and it probably will require a lot of money in order for us to get this problem even to the point where we can be happy with some of our resolve. But this is a national epidemic. It's not going to go away anytime soon. And so what I would ask people to do is, when you see a transient person and they are in fact breaking the law, give us a call. We can absolutely deal with violators that are breaking the law. So being in the park after hours, yes, we can deal with that. Leaving bikes in the middle of the street and littering, we can deal with that. But being in a park, being on a street, those are very difficult things for us to deal with, and our hands are tied because, again, we're law enforcement, so we're supposed to enforce the law. And if there's no law being broken, we have difficulty contacting those folks in any other manner outside of distress. So hopefully that answers a couple of questions that were on the board. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Esther next with your question. Go ahead.
Hi, Roger and Chief Nichols. Thank you for doing this and being part of our community. I've been a member of this community for 68 years and seen a sleepy little town bust out into a metropolis of people and industry. So you've got a terrific amount of area to cover, and I think it's being done well. But in years past, we used to have neighborhood watch, and somebody in the areas, in different areas of the town, would coordinate that. I'd like to see that happen again. It was very positive, and it kept people's issues at bay and able to contact somebody that could help us with a neighborhood issue. I've worked with Chuck Baker, who was previous chief, and very positive there. And I do want to make a comment about the officers that I work with, because I'm with the Commerce City Historical. They are very helpful with transients and any issues that we have with the areas that we are in charge of. Another thing is the neighborhoods. They put a monitor on a telephone pole across the street from me this last week, and it was a radar, and we didn't know what it was, so looking at it, but they were radaring, and it came down yesterday, I believe. But I think that's another good positive thing in different areas that have speeding problems, to put that in different areas and possibly address those people that are not obeying the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Hopefully something comes from those. And if they're put up periodically, that might curtail.
But I'm going to jump
Pardon
in.
me?
Raised a lot of great issues. Let the chief kind of talk about some of those. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So the neighborhood watch question that you had, I spoke with one of our former community policing liaisons, and she informed me that we currently have about 7 neighborhood watch groups in the city now. And the thing about neighborhood watch is it's ran basically by the community, and each group has a captain or a coordinator that's responsible for gathering their neighbors and bringing forth issues to the police department. We're willing to do that, but it takes some manpower to do it. And that's why it's important for the community to run those community watch groups. So I guess the answer is, if people are interested in doing that, then they can do so, and we'll get involved with those. But again, the community has to start that. We'll be happy to provide some information. I can give you guys my email address if that helps. You can send me an email and I'll provide some information. And my email is rmccoy, MCCOY, @c3gov.com. So send me an email if you have questions, or if anybody's interested in having a neighborhood watch group, and we can provide some information for you. With regards to speeding in the neighborhoods, I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as the device. I'm guessing that it was a something that demonstrates the speed of a vehicle or something to that nature. And we put those things up to try to slow cars down and to try to gather information on if it is potentially a speeding problem in the neighborhood. So I think that was the kind of the gist of your question. Hopefully that answers it.
And Rob, if I can jump in real quick, Neighborhood Watch is something that is very important to us, and we've paired up with National Neighborhood Watch. I know we pushed some information out on the city website, but I'll also make sure we put some information up on the police department website, the link to it. And I will tell you, we can talk about tips and things you can do to protect yourself and make yourself less of a target of criminal activity. But the strength in neighbors and the strength in community is strong. And some of the better neighborhood watch programs work best when they are neighbor-led. I can tell you almost every program that starts with the police department leading it almost inevitably fails due to lack of interest, primarily because we don't live in a neighborhood. We have transitions where officers move from patrol to investigation, and so you end up losing your contact, but neighbors stay consistent. And so we'd be more than happy to come out and talk to folks about what a good neighborhood watch program looks like, but it is incumbent upon the neighborhood to do the work to get themselves involved. And I will tell you, it is good work. It is how you protect your neighborhood. It's how you look out for each other. And it is how you keep bad criminal elements out of your neighborhood. So again, great question, and thank you.
All right, let's take a minute. I believe the chief wanted to talk about another important topic, and that was Senate Bill 217. Chief, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Again, the legislation that was passed this last session really had a tremendous impact on law enforcement. And I'm not here to debate the merits of it, because I know the legislation certainly had its pros and cons. But we wanted to at least advise folks that the Senate bill did in fact have an impact on our resources. It was a bipartisan bill that passed. and it literally required us to restructure the way we do policing. And so for a lot of our officers and staff that had been here for a while, it required them to take a look and see if they wanted to consider staying in the profession because it has changed. There are a few significant things in the bill that I want to discuss with you, but I don't want to take up too much time because I really want to get back to the question and answer session. But the Senate bill requires us to do a lot more reporting. And so when we have a lot more reporting for every person that we contact, what that means is the time between contacts starts to grow. And so when you wonder why you don't have a police officer stopping cars in your neighborhood, well, every time they do that, that requires about an additional 5 to 7 minutes of paperwork that needs to be completed at the state level. And it is mandated. There isn't anything that we can do about that. It is required by law. And so when you talk about resource drain, those are the unintended consequences of new legislation. And I am not suggesting that it is bad. I am simply articulating that it has increased the amount of time that it takes for officers to deal with calls for service and respond to resident concerns. That is why we anticipate that there will be a significant growth in our calls for service time. Quite frankly, it is unavoidable. It has also had an impact on policing in general. Officers, again, we talked about it, the Senate bill required that officers have some skin in the game. And so what it does is it makes them responsible and liable for up to 2% or $25,000 of any wrongful lawsuit. And I'm not an attorney, so I could probably hear our attorney losing his mind right now. But what it in fact does is says that if an officer does anything wrong and they end up in court because they get sued and they are found to be wrong, there's a $25,000 fee and or 2%, the lesser or up to $25,000. And so there's an impact with officers having to second guess what it is that they're doing. And so that second guessing also comes at a price. They slow down, which we want them to do. They ask additional questions, and they want to make absolutely certain that the situation that they're responding to requires a law enforcement presence. That also increases our time to response to calls. So there are a lot of different things in the bill. Some good, some are challenging for us to work around. We're committed to it. It is the law. We will certainly be compliant with it. But it's important for the community to understand that this is a pretty impactful bill in how we police. And it required us to restructure how we do things and how we report things, which is important for transparency and accountability. So again, just wanted to make sure that people understood. I would encourage everybody that hasn't read the bill to take a look at it. It's Senate Bill 217. It's been in all the major newspapers. I'm sure you shouldn't have a problem finding it. But it is worth reading so you can understand some of the changes that are taking place in our community as it relates to public safety and policing in general. Thank you for the question, Roger.
All right, let's get back to questions, and we're going to go next to Sue. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for your service. In my neighborhood, there have been loud house parties with live bands, and I was wondering if does Commerce City have hours for noise ordinance or anything like that? I did call the non-emergency several times, and they just come back and tell me that I would have to make the complaint, go to court. But is there anything, why can't an officer just go to that house, give them a written warning or a ticket and tell them, okay, there was a complaint, and then we have a noise ordinance. Do we even have a noise ordinance?
Yes, ma'am.
At 10 o'clock? Yes,
ma'am. So if I could answer your question, I'll refer you to our municipal code, section 6-2011. It's unreasonable noise. And that basically says that any time of day, if the noise is unreasonable, the officer will make a determination if it's reasonable or not. And that could be very well dictated by the time of day and the loudness of the incident. So hopefully that kind of gets to the point. So if you can refer to that, if you have any questions, call an officer and they'll come out and assess it. we can go contact people and
Okay.
issue warnings for things like that, and we'll make a determination if criminal charges, ordinance violations are appropriate or not.
Okay, thank you. Sandra, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Yes, I was just wondering, I know Chief Nichols said that you guys are having some resource problems with officers. I guess I just want to know, is the Commerce City Police Department trying to hire more officers, and like what's being done to make Commerce City more desirable as opposed to other departments?
Thank you. That's a really good question. I talked a little bit about the Senate bill. That certainly has had an impact on staffing. What I can tell you, at least the negative portion of it is, when the bill passed, we lost 7 officers, 7 employees, not all were officers. Lost 7 employees that decided that law enforcement was no longer in their future. And I can tell you currently, I am in anticipation by mid-October, I'll lose an additional 3. And so when we talk about resources, hiring and retaining officers is a high priority of mine. I can tell you an organization in a city that is growing is almost always hiring. But there are 2 things that we've got to struggle with. A, we're a mid-sized agency that sits between quite a few other desirable organizations if you deem necessary. Denver is a big organization that offers quite a bunch of opportunity for officers. Aurora is another organization that's larger than ours, and they also offer more opportunities. But I can tell you, Commerce City is a pretty special place. We have a very supportive community. We've got great elected officials that believe in us and that support us at every win. And so this is really a great place to work. I sort of think we're a hidden gem. And I can tell you, since my time in Commerce City, we've done everything we can to sort of spread our message. And I will also tell you that I am extremely proud of our recruiting team. We have an open recruitment right now. I believe it just closed. And we have over 600 and something applicants. The first time in Commerce City history that we've had those types of numbers. And so, yes, are we losing officers? Most of them had the ability to retire. Most of them had other opportunities available to them. And most of them wanted the opportunities in other organizations. And that's okay. We are going to be recruiting heavily. And my promise to the residents of Commerce City is I'm not going to drop the standard to fill seats. We're going to do everything we can to make sure we get the best and brightest candidates to come here in Commerce City that are going to be committed to the organization, committed to the community, and they want to come here and do good. I'm not going to drop the bar to get bodies in the door. We're going to make sure we do it right. And so hopefully that's able to answer your question.
Okay, let's call on David next. Go ahead.
Hello. Yes, good evening, Chief and Commissioner. And again, thank you for your service. You guys are greatly appreciated. My question is in 2 parts. One is my wife and I live in Old Commerce City. I believe it's been mentioned a little bit around 64th Avenue and Monaco, Kearny Street area. And the speeding issue here is terrible. It's a drag race up and down Kearny Street continually. It seems to be more towards school letting out around 2 and after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It just seems to get worse. Additionally, we do occasionally hear what we think are gunshots going off. And I'm wondering, does Commerce City have any type of gunshot detection equipment, like maybe some other departments might have, so you guys could actually determine where those shots are being fired? And lastly, is there anything in the works or in the mix concerning illegal fireworks? I know this last summer was just awful. It was like we were just being bombarded constantly. And it's slacked off quite a bit, but it is still prevalent and noticeable. And it is difficult to differentiate between gunshots and fireworks. And either way you look at it, it is extremely alarming. And if you could comment on that, I'd certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Thank you for your question. A couple of different things. Approach there. The speeding, I think we've covered pretty well this evening. The school issue, with kids in remote learning scenarios, they're not as tied up in school as they used to be, and that presents its own set of challenges. But specific to your issues that you bring up about fireworks and gunshots, last year the city did take a much stronger approach on fireworks. We've taken a strong stance against them, and we raised the fine for fireworks. Actually, the city council raised the fine for fireworks quite a bit, and we had some pretty intense enforcement around fireworks this 4th of July and last 4th of July. It does still happen quite a bit, and it's going to take some time for that enforcement to percolate through the city. With regard to actual gunfire, we did have a tough summer. There was a number of shootings. Specific to your question with regard to gunshot detection devices, no, we don't have that. The only city in all of Colorado that has gunshot detection devices right now is the city and county of Denver, and they run that in a partnership with the ATF. And the reason they run that in a partnership with the ATF is the exorbitant cost. The ShotSpotter system costs nearly $3 million, which is just not an amount of money that we have for that particular issue. What we have done in a partnership with both the Denver Police Department and the ATF is we are the second most prevalent participants in a program called NIBIN, where we collect up shell casings at every single gun crime we find, and we have linked most of our shootings to other shootings throughout the metro area. In fact, 2 years ago, 40% of the shootings that we experienced were linked to other shootings throughout the area. So the actual gunshot spotting system we don't have, but forensically we do link our shootings to many other shootings around the region, and that's led to some great arrests.
All right, great question. Carrie, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for your service. I appreciate it very much. What I'm wondering about is we've had issues with over on the old Buckley Road that's closed down behind the Buffalo Highlands housing development, and cars speeding through there and racing. Is there anything we can get done about that?
I got it. Yeah, so forgive me, that I think that's the first time I've heard that we've had any sort of like drag racers or anything on Buckley. I know that used to be an issue years ago. Our officers to the north, I'm sure, are familiar with that area, and we will address it the best that we can with our manpower and our traffic unit. I'm assuming it's in mostly off hours, and so we'll pass that on to our graveyard shift as well. Thank you.
Okay, Ed, it is your turn. Go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to thank, I think his name was Christopher Garcia. He had given me an email to contact him for videos and stuff that I've seen in the neighborhood. And Ivy, somebody mentioned about speeding on Ivy, but not on Ivy, on 60th Avenue. It's gone up to Ivy. In fact, it's gotten to the point where I can sit there. If I come home on any given day, there's multiple four-wheelers out there, dirt bikes, cars speeding up and down. I've been calling you guys, showing you guys videos. Sometimes you guys catch them, sometimes not, but it's just like constant. I mean, literally constant. Also, the stop sign, all the stop signs are on 60th, and I noticed you guys are enforcing it, and that's great. I love it. They just roll through them. People just roll through them, not even a California stop. Just roll right through it. And it's just getting to the point. I've been in a couple of accidents over there. One of them, people were just running the red light. They run it, tractor trailers running the red light, and cars. multiple, and specifically over by Walmart.
Right. Yes. Thank you for your question, and we agree. Officer Garcia is great. I just encourage. We know that sometimes it's an issue that it's a repeated problem in the community. What I want to encourage people to do is continue to call. I said I was going to give you our non-emergent number earlier, and our non-emergent number is 303-288-1535. So if it's something that's an ongoing problem that you don't need an officer right away, I encourage you to call that number, and we'll get an officer back with you to address the issue. 60th Avenue is a very busy street. It connects the city, obviously from Highway 85 all the way to Quebec, and it's very busy in and around the business district there. With trucks and cars trying to get around trucks, we understand that. And that is one of our focus areas for our traffic unit. Unfortunately, we can't be there 24 hours a day, but again, I encourage you to call us. We have officers in the area as much as we can, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our time tonight. Boy, it's been a great call. Chief, do you have some final closing remarks?
I do. Thank you, Roger. Again, first of all, I want to thank all of our residents that took the time to call in. I do know that we've got quite a few questions still left on the screen, and my commitment is if the phone numbers are good that are left, we will have somebody reach out within the next 24 to 48 hours to make sure that those questions are answered. There is one question up there that is very important that I want to make sure we discuss. It came from Janet. And she asked, is the PD doing any training around bias, racial profiling, police brutality, and against communities? And absolutely. That is something that we do on an annual basis. We've certified instructors in the police department, and it is something that we hold our employees' feet to the fire on, treating people with dignity and respect, regardless of their socioeconomic, religion, color, race, or creed. Everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And so we absolutely do that. And so on that note, thank you again. And again, we encourage you, if you have questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. You can always go to the C3Gov website, click on police. There's a bunch of information on there. There's also the ability for you to leave a complaint or a commendation. Those things are checked hourly. And so if you have any other concerns, don't hesitate to reach out and get a hold of us. This has been a great time, and thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. If we didn't get to your question during the call, another option is you can leave us a message at the end of the call. Hang on the line, and you will be directed to a voicemail system. Thank you all, and have a good night.
Good night.